Why do Wolves have so many Portuguese players? Since achieving promotion to the Premier League in 2018, Wolverhampton Wanderers, or Wolves for short, have become a staple of the English top division. Their passionate fans, dressed in gold shirts and fabulously atmospheric stadium, have since then seen some of the most entertaining football in the league at times, and no team enjoys going there. Since getting promoted, Wolves have seen some famous victories over Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal among others, and their stadium, Molineux, is not an easy place to visit. Considering just 10 years ago, Wolves had been relegated to the third division of English football and in quite serious financial trouble, this represents a meteoric rise to being an established team in the best league in the world. To many older fans, however, Wolves' success won't be anything too extraordinary, as in the 1950s, it's fair to say that Wolves were one of the giants of English football, consistently winning FA Cups and finishing in the top two of the First Division. In more recent times, success in terms of winning trophies has eluded the club, but in the 2019-20 season, a run to the Europa League quarter-finals, beating on their way teams like Besiktas, Espanyol, and Olympiacos, before losing to eventual winners Sevilla. Wolves' sharp upturn in fortunes began in 2016 when the club was bought by a Chinese conglomerate called Fosun International. Now, we all know that two of the most important components needed for a club to succeed are good players and a good manager. These are, of course, things that any club going in the right direction strives to acquire as cheaply and efficiently as possible. Since getting promoted, Wolves have employed 4 managers, the most successful of which was Nuno Espirito Santo, and have a long list of very talented players come and go, from Ruben Neves to Diogo Jota, and from Pedro Neto to João Moutinho. What do all these current and former Wolves players have in common? They all come from Portugal. They are only 4 of a long, long list of players hailing from the Iberian country to pull on the gold shirt of Wolves, so I think it's a fair question many people have asked themselves, and it is the question I will be answering in this video. Why on earth do Wolves have so many Portuguese players? The record for the number of Portuguese players starting in a match for Wolverhampton Wanderers was set on December 27, 2020, in a match against Tottenham Hotspur. A staggering 7 of the 11 players starting the game for Wolves had Portuguese nationality. You might just think that it was the then manager, the Portuguese, obviously, Nuno Espirito Santo, who was responsible for bringing so many of his countrymen to the club. After all, in his time at Arsenal, Frenchman Arsène Wenger was known for filling his Arsenal team with relatively unknown French players before turning them into stars. David Wagner, German by birth, seemed to sign mostly German players when manager of Huddersfield Town, and Rafael Benitez started his Liverpool managerial career by almost exclusively signing fellow Spaniards. But you'd be wrong to think that Nuno was the main cause. When the club was bought out while languishing in the English second tier by the Chinese company that still is the majority stakeholder, it was revealed fairly quickly that they hold a unique relationship with Jorge Mendes, a Portuguese super agent in the world of football, known for representing the likes of Jose Mourinho, Diego Costa, João Felix, and Cristiano Ronaldo, to name but a few. Sorry to interrupt, but before we continue, I have to tell you guys about Sorare, fully verified and trusted website where you can invest in sports stars and build your fantasy team. Put your sports knowledge to work and make profits. Sign up through the link in the description to get a free card. The Chinese company, Fosun International, and Jorge Mendes' relationship can be better understood if we rewind to the start of the year 2016. On a stage in a luxury Shanghai hotel, Jorge Mendes was together with the head of Chinese investment company Guo Guangchang, announcing a partnership between the two that would essentially see Mendes' football player agency become capable of exerting the kind of financial might that had never been heard of in the industry. While previously, although extremely renowned and successful, Jorge Mendes' agency, Gestifude, was able to attract top talent traditionally. Now, with Guangchang's Fosun International Group's $10 billion behind it, it was capable of being more proactive and scouring Southern Europe to offer clubs huge money to ensure that their best talent would be represented by Mr. Mendes. Fosun International and Guo Guangchang were clear with Mendes that the way they saw it, the only viable way to be profitable in football was through player trading and player representation. And, while in many countries in Europe, such as England, it is considered illegal for owners of clubs to directly represent or own any stake in a player. For agents, it is considered perfectly normal. The agreement was, then, that Fosun would buy Wolverhampton Wanderers and Mendes would be responsible for bringing the very talented players he represents to the club so that they can be developed and sold on for a profit. One obvious example of this working was Diogo Jota being bought by Wolves for just $12 million before being sold to Liverpool for 4 times that amount just 2 years later. So if you plan to own a football club and ensure that you will make a profit at the end of your endeavors, why not be friendly with one of the most well-connected, well-renowned football agents there is? Interestingly, the first player Jorge Mendes ever represented in his football agency career was a goalkeeper whom he met in a bar in Porto in 1996 by the name of Nuno Espirito Santo. And, after 2 decent but not spectacular stints as manager of Valencia and Porto, one of the first things Mendes did in his association with Wolves was to accommodate a deal to make Nuno the new manager of championship side Wolves. What followed this was wave after wave of new signings from clubs all over Portugal, the most spectacular of which was the signing of then wonderkid Ruben Neves for $15.8 million from Porto, a record fee for a championship team. Neves, alongside fellow Portuguese players Diogo Jota, Ivan Cavaleiro, and Pedro Goncalves, played a very important role in the promotion of Wolves in 2018, and the riches of the Premier League then ensured Wolves' ability to flex their relationship with Portuguese players and clubs further and in later seasons bring in Portuguese internationals João Moutinho, Daniel Podence, Nelson Semedo, Rui Patricio, and more. Nowadays, Wolves' relationship with Jorge Mendes and Portuguese football isn't as obvious as it was a few seasons ago. They tend to shop around in other markets, probably because they are now what most people would describe as an established Premier League club. While no club other than a few can always consider themselves 100% safe from relegation, Wolves' strategy, while unorthodox, has proven to be successful. Not many Wolves fans even would have predicted that their club would play host to so many Portuguese international footballers playing European football in their golden shirts. While having such a relationship with a football agent may at first glance appear to be seedy or in bad taste, I'm sure that Wolves fans would argue differently. Either way, now you know why the Wolves have had so many Portuguese players. What do you think of their strategy for doing this? Let me know in the comments below.